Good afternoon, buenas tardes, bienvenidos a ¿Qué pasa mujer? Welcome to ¿Qué pasa mujer? Estamos aquí todos los domingos a las 4 de la tarde. We're here every Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Ya llevamos 2 años. It's been about 2 years that we've been having the show. And so we love to talk about all the different topics we talk about. So you never know what you're going to get with our conversations with Maddie, Nikte, and myself. But the purpose of our platform here is to be able to just have transparent conversations. Nuestro propósito con este programa es tener conversaciones abiertas, como dice una persona que yo conozco, sin pelos en la lengua. So that's our objective here. And we've talked about many, many different types of topics. So sometimes it's been about business, about women, about the differences between men and women, about finances, about parenting, dating, culture, all of the different topics that we talk about. So we're going to go ahead and bring Maddie on and Ikte as well, so we can go ahead and get started. Hola Maddie, ¿cómo estás?
Buenas tardes, mujeres.
Buenas tardes.
Hola Nikte, buenas.
It's still días for me.
Yeah. Wait, Nikte, so I've never been to Hawaii, and you live in Hawaii. Yes. And somebody told me this week that the speed limit is 55.
Yeah.
And I was like,
not everybody follows it.
I would have so many tickets if I was over there.
Yeah, I don't know if people get tickets here. I've seen so many people blaze through. There are, unfortunately, a lot of accidents on the highways, likely because of that. But yeah. And traffic gets so bad here in the middle of the day, at any time of the day, that I think that also doesn't allow people to speed that much either. So
yeah, I was talking to Mark, our producer, and he reminded me that back in the day here in Virginia area, East Coast, the speed limit used to be 55. Yeah, but people are always going to push it.
Yeah, because people are always late going to places, and that's why they're speeding a lot of the time.
Yeah, not Maddie. Maddie's always on time. Like, how people say like CP time, and I'm like, CP time means Colombian time. But I'm pretty punctual. I've always been very punctual. As I've gotten older, it's gotten worse, maybe a little bit. But it depends too on the venue, how important it is. So I might show up earlier. But yeah, we're known to speed. Like my mom was criticizing my way of driving, and I'm like, you taught me how to drive. All right, Nick, tell me something good about your week last week. And today is the last Sunday of this month. So next month we'll enter March month, which is Maddie's baby and my birthday next month. So she'll be turning 1, right?
Yeah. Wow. Yes, ma'am.
Time flies.
All right, Nick, tell us a little bit about what's going on.
I mean, super busy week. It's going good. I think that I had a huge mindset shift, which I talked about last week, that has really kind of helped me stay focused. Less goofing off time, when sometimes you're procrastinating so much because things are challenging, but through that, navigating that challenge brings growth. So I've been really pushing through, and the part that I'm working on is rewarding myself for the hard work, because that I am not quite there, mis mujeres. I'm going to be honest with that. So that's one thing that I'm working on, is when I'm working hard, giving myself that downtime. And I have in little spurts, but I would like to give myself, okay, now I have an hour to go relax outside and quiet, lay down in a hammock or something. So doing that more intentionally and putting that on my calendar. So that's been great, been very busy, very thankful to be busy, but I've also been pushing and driving hard. So it's been nice that I'm seeing the momentum, and I know that's going to pay off. So that's kind of been my week in a nutshell.
Very good, very good. How about you, Maddie?
For us over here, as you know, Viviana, the world stopped in Virginia this week. So it was crazy because we had 10 inches of snow or so. So it's like very, like, it has, well, I'm not going to say that it has never happened, but it doesn't happen often. It happens like every 10 years or something like that. So, yes, so we came at a standstill. And, it's funny sometimes, that that, like, I come from New York, so I'm so used to like seeing a lot of snow, and like walking to school on 15 inches of snow outside, and I have to walk 20 minutes, and that was normal. And then here it's like, oh, it's gonna come down, and like the whole world, like, when I tell you, we have people at the bank, like, at 9 o'clock in the morning, like even before we opened, there were like already 20 cars in the drive-through, and people, the line wrapped around, and it was like, what? And one client came in and he goes, people are getting ready for the apocalypse. And I just died, because that's literally what he felt like people thought the world was gonna end. And then, of course, it fell, and it was beautiful outside. And then the next day, they calling us to go into work, and everybody's like, I'm not driving outside in this weather. And of course, everybody agreed, and nobody wanted to come out. So my branch made a collective decision. It helped that the city of Chesapeake sent out like a warning, like not to be outside and things like that. So eventually the bank decided to close last minute. So that was nice. So kind of, navigating through that, got to enjoy the snow. My baby got to go out and play in the snow too. So my daughter and her kind of went for a walk the day after, and the neighbors have built snowmans and stuff like that. So she got to take pictures and enjoy that time. And it was very cold too. So again, it's been a very different season for us. It's been like really cold. It's been winter, like winter hit us. So just happy that we survived the winter, and that we got to enjoy it. No mishaps. Everybody's healthy, everybody's well. So blessed and thankful for that. So what about you, Viviana?
As you were talking, and because I'm from up north as well, so but it's almost like like this snow, like 10 inches is nothing, 8 inches is nothing. But guess what? I don't want to go to work. I don't want to go outside. So cuando depende como yo quiera, so like I'm from New York or New Jersey, whatever, but then I accommodate myself for the conveniences of not going to work, which is great. Yeah, because it's the same thing for me. And I know people, because the schools were closed, the banks were closed, things were closed, and I was like, I hibernated, and I loved it. It was amazing. I loved it. But I was, I think it's a forced time to take care of stuff that maybe you wouldn't take care of, or it kind of like when COVID happened, where it kind of forced you to kind of like be more intimate with your family. And that's where, people's like marriages were really challenged. You either stayed married or you divorced, one or the other, because you spend so much time with the people in your house. So yeah, that was interesting. And then yeah, because Nick that's talking about the hammock. I'm like, hammock? Not over here. We're not doing nowhere near a hammock. So hopefully next month, for the baby's birthday and my birthday, it'll start to get a little bit warm. I'm gonna be 40 again. So I might do a celebration for my 40th birthday. Nikta, you're getting older than me.
I know. I don't know how that happened.
Oh my God, no lo entiendo. Um, so we were supposed to have a special guest today, but we had to postpone. She had a death in the family, so we're definitely, thinking of her, whatever. So we're going to be talking a little bit about. There's a book. I have it here. I have it in Spanish. It's called Las Venas Abiertas de América Latina. So it's called Open Veins of Latin America. And I came in contact with this book several years ago, and I tried to read it, and I got upset. I think I've mentioned it before on the show. I got upset because it talks about the Europeans coming to what we call South America today, and how they just kind of like just cut our arms and took everything that Maddie's poems talk about all the time. So I didn't read it for a long time, but now I'm starting to read it a little bit, and I really want to like analyze it and dissect it. So it made me think about the biases that we have, in this world that we face. And as we were doing our research, I came across so I think I have sent you guys a quote, and I'm going to read it. And it's by the author, Eduardo Galeano. So he says, I believe in the diversity of the human condition. The best thing about the world is the amount of worlds it has, right? So it made me think about the diversity, and even within our show, like we're these three Latina women, but we all come from different backgrounds. We might be around the same age, but our skin tone is different. The way that we classify each ourselves is different. Our family dynamics, our income, just our experiences through life, just the family dynamic. So as I was thinking about that, I kind of came across this word called microaggressions that sometimes people use, but we don't even realize that we're using it. So I remember when I was taking a college class in New Jersey, I went to get some advice from my current math teacher about the next math class that I was going to take. And I was trying to get his recommendation about my next math teacher. And he said, hey, you should select such and such. He's Black, but he's a really good teacher. So stuff like that is like these low key type of that you don't even realize that you're being racist. Or sometimes they'll say, oh, I was surprised you were able to do that, as if you didn't think that I was capable of. Or sometimes with, like, let's say Latinos, we might have an accent, and they will pass judgment immediately just because you have an accent, like you must not have a college degree or whatever of those things. So I kind of wanted to get some feedback about that. I don't know if you have personally experienced anything like that, or you've seen it. Never. And then there for you, like even in your graphic world, because I know you like this is your thing where you incorporate culture and the multicultural thing. I don't know what you call it in your world to in the business world. So I just kind of wanted to get your feedback a little bit, Nick Day, and then Maddie, you could go.
I love this topic because I think that it makes us pause and reflect from some things that we do ourselves too. And I think that is the starting point, is that before we start to point fingers at everyone else, we need to start looking at ourselves and starting to reflect, am I also saying these things, or am I also having these microaggressions? Because it's so much easier to blame someone else than to reflect on how we can improve and how can we lead by example. So one of the things for me that has been such a, as I've gotten older in my fabulous 40s, I know I'm so much older than you, Viviana, now. So I am going to share, like, I think that now that in my 40s, the older you get, the more you can reflect on your younger decades and your younger years. And I feel so proud of my multicultural heritage. But when I was younger, I often felt I had to pick one side because it didn't reflect all of my family. Like my one side of my family is Colombian, like Viviana, you're my cousin, we're blood cousins. And then I was born in Mexico City. My dad's from Mexico. And then I was raised in Venezuela. So my culture is multicultural. So for me, I often felt like I had to, and I was doing it subconsciously. Cuando estaba con mi familia de Colombia, I try to like spill un poquito más el acento colombiano que me vaya María Purísima, like, but I felt like I had to force it to feel like I belonged. Or sometimes I know, like when I visit my cousins in Mexico, like I would say things that in Venezuela mean something completely different in Mexico, not a good thing. And so I often felt like, oh my gosh, am I going to say something that is going to insult? And I have to kind of like, so I would pre explain, like, mira, esta palabra significa esto y esto para nosotros. ¿Qué significa? Yeah, because I could tell that they're giving me that face. So already having that notion of I have to be careful what I say. I have to kind of pick and choose my cultures to feel like I belong within my own family was so hard. And it wasn't that people were doing it intentionally, but sometimes they were. I would hear one side is like the culture is better than the other ones. And like we Latinos are, especialmente en Latinoamérica, we don't go say, ah, yo soy Latino, yo soy Latina, let's all come together. No, it's not like, oh, Dominicans aren't as cool as Venezuelans or Colombians. Like I would grow up hearing that and it would always bother me, but I felt like I could never speak up about it because people have pride in their culture. But I see it as we can have like this beautiful diversity where Maddie is from. I love where she's from. I want to learn. I want to hear about her culture, her traditions. With Viviana, like I know you're a lot more connected with our Colombian side. So I'm like listening, okay, learning, absorbing. And I feel that we can equally celebrate and honor each other's heritage, cultura equally without bringing someone else down. And I think that's the problem is that sometimes we lose sight of that, of how beautiful it can be to just pause and learn from a different culture, even if we speak the same language. There's so much that we can learn from your stories, how you grew up, the struggles that you went through. And I think that is a problem, is that we're not listening. We're more like, well, what about me? What about like blah blah blah? So it's not like, okay, let's reflect on where we started from. And I realized that things of how I grew up, eso me inculcó la manera de ser. And then I was very lucky to be in a school that was very diverse. I had friends from everywhere in the world. So I know that put me in a different perspective than the majority of people. But I also use that as a way to help lead by example, to say, I'm never going to go and say someone's culture is far less than mine, because I would never like for someone to say that. So why am I going to do that to someone else or point fingers at a stranger that I don't know what their life is without having that conversation? So kind of like that's my whole big, perspective on how my philosophy in life and in my work too, that it spills together. How about you, Maddie?
I think diversity, it's such a big word, and I think we have been focusing on just the outside. When we talk about diversity, we just talk about how people look, everybody looking different or whatever. Like that's what we have pinned, for lack of a better word, as a definition for diversity. I was watching this TED talk today, and it's called Diversity, Belonging, a Critical Piece of DEI, and it's by a lady named Karen Taylor, and in it she is talking about how she went into a conference, and the conference was about diversity, and it was given by a white older gentleman. And after the whole event finished, she approached the gentleman and she goes, I don't receive your message. I don't receive your message because and the gentleman was like, why would you say that? And she goes, because you are a white man. You're an older white man, which is, usually the symbol of power. And he looked at her and he said, I'm gay. So she said that she froze and she went home and she cried because she understood that exactly what she had felt her entire life is exactly what she did to that gentleman that day. And I think that's what happens again when we talk about diversity. We think about, oh yeah, I'm Dominican, I'm from another country and you're from this country, whatever. We don't think about so many other things that are included when it comes to diversity as well, that we don't take into consideration. And that's when those little things, like Viviana was saying, those little microaggressions, come into play, because we tend to downplay certain things, not understanding that, diversity, she was saying how psychological safety is one of the things that we have to focus on when we are at a place of work, feeling safe to be yourself, however, you come across, whether it is, being gay, being Black, being Latina, being, and feeling comfortable enough to talk about that. This is what I bring to the table. This is who I am, and I'm not afraid to show it or say it. And this is what makes me different, and it's okay. So it's those little things, that we have to learn to feel empowered. She was also talking about how you walk into a place sometimes, and people look different, might have their little cliques, and you walk into the room, and let's say in my case, I'm the only Latina, and I walk into the room, and nobody's talking to me because I might not know anybody, or people cannot relate to me. It's like, okay, do I feel safe enough to walk in there and say, and again, this is me in real life. I walk into the bank every day in the morning. I'm the only Hispanic person there, and I walk in every day, buenos dias, and everybody knows that I got there. So that's me, because I feel safe enough to speak in Spanish and say buenos dias to everybody. And it's funny because the whitest girl in the room, she is like country, 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 and she tells me buenos dias or hasta luego, or like she makes an effort to speak in Spanish to me. And I think that is wonderful because, again, she's embracing me, but I'm also not afraid to be myself or express who I am.
Yeah, that's great. I think that makes a huge difference because there are those unconscious bias that sometimes we've been doing it for so long that we don't even realize that we're doing it. So like, sometimes we might say, oh, that female, she's beautiful, as if she has no flaws or no insecurities. And so in our minds, we think that she's this. I like to people watch, right? So like put me at an airport like all day. I'm like in heaven, And then I try like, and it's me. It's probably me judging the entire time, but not in a not with bad intentions. But I almost think about like, I wonder if they're married, or why did she choose to wear those high heels? Like you're in the freaking airport all day, like little things is what I do when I people watch. And sometimes I admire it, or sometimes I'm like, those two colors don't look good, or I never thought I could put those two colors together, they look good. So it's a combination of that, but it's that unconscious bias because it's like automatic. We don't even get a chance to think, and it's because of how we were raised or the things that we heard before. This past week I was talking to this person, and he's a therapist, and I was just saying, just in general, I have transparent conversations with my son, and sometimes these conversations are uncomfortable to them because we have to have the conversations, because if I don't have them, other people might, or nobody might. He said, that could be a little intimidating for your kids, don't you think? And I was like, dang, I guess so, And maybe then I started to question myself, like, am I too aggressive? Because sometimes I am, right? And people have told me that. But I think it's that it made me think about just growing and just being more aware of the things that I say. Because I get on the kids all the time about you can't say mama jokes, because there's a lot of kids that I know whose moms have passed away and they're in second grade, so I'm against mama jokes. So, but you have to teach this to the kids. Like they don't know. So I think that that's important when we throw in our personal experience, our personal perspective, and assume, oh, Maddie, you must be 30 because you look a certain way, or because your makeup is a certain way, or you're skinny and beautiful, you work out, so you must have like the perfect life. So all of those are biases that I think we have to be more aware of. And then also like the one thing that I had looked up was the inclusive language. You know how certain people, and I know that the president wants us to just say, male or female, but people still go by they or them. And I think sometimes too, even minor things, like let's say that I'm not married but I have a partner, so maybe even calling them my partner, and it doesn't mean that I'm gay, it's just that this is my partner, it's not my husband. So I think all of those things, and I think it takes a moment for us to kind of think. And like Maddie would say, get educated, like learn about the different verbiage that's out here. And that's difficult for me sometimes because I don't watch the news that much. So I have to be on purpose, mindful to look things up or to take a class or to watch a YouTube video. I have to be intentional is the word I was looking for. I have to be intentional to be aware of that. So like the other day, this is funny. I was talking to a group of like 4 first graders, and I'm like, hey, do you guys know what the word empathy means? Right? So they're like, no. So then we ask Alexa, right? And then the little girl said, oh, it means you put your own feet in your own shoes, right? And I'm like, oh my God, so cute. But little things like that make a difference, right? For you to teach awareness to other people. And I don't know, I love doing activities like that with them because it's all about educating them and it's never too early. And we did not leave the room until everybody understood what empathy meant and everybody gave the definition. So stuff like that makes a difference because I think we really have to educate our youth. Maddie, can you tell us a little bit, maybe like with your children? And because, sometimes I get disconnected with young people in reference to topics like this because I might not have those conversations, but you have like in-house people. So what is the mentality of young people when it comes to these type of topics?
I don't know about me knowing the mentality. It's like sometimes, you sit down with the kids and it's like, you're like, oh, really? Is that what's going on out there? But I think, like you said, it's important, to have those conversations. I think this generation way of thinking is, I'm not going to say completely different, but it is different than maybe what we have grown up, because again, like you were saying, like that little girl's definition of empathy, it was funny, but it made sense to her. And when we talk about again what diversity means, what empathy means, we can relate things when you find a way of relating the topic to yourself. And that's why diversity is so big, because it just, people have to understand it at whatever level they are at. So sometimes, again, when we keep talking about educating ourselves, I'm glad you mentioned language, because again, the world that I move in, when it comes to like my poetry people, my poetry family, we have a lot of that, a lot of, non-binary, we have a lot of they, them, we have, trans, and, there's a lot of everything. So you have to be careful how you speak and how you express yourself. And I've made so many mistakes and I constantly find myself apologizing because, again, I'm 50. I'm almost 50 years old. So, I'm just used to, he and she, and all of a sudden it's like them, they, them. And then I'm talking and, they might look like a girl, but they is a guy. And, and it's like, I'm trying to keep up. I promise, I'm not doing it on purpose, And so, sometimes, it might seem funny to me, but it is not funny to them, So and I don't, and I don't do, it doesn't come from a malicious place. It's just, again, it's different for me, at 50 is different, trying to deviate from what I've known. So again, education is the key. Like you said, talking to our young people, the way the way they face the world, technology, where before you could have a conversation, and now it's like every little thing you have to be so careful because every little thing can be blown out of proportion. The whole I talk about this all the time. People are non-confrontational, and sometimes they don't want to take responsibility for the things that they say. And I'm the kind of person that, if Viviana is my friend and Nikki says, oh, well, Viviana said this about you, I'm not going to go and tell Mark, can you believe that Viviana said this about me? No, I'm going to go to Viviana and I'm going to say, is everything okay? Is there something that you want to discuss with me? And then if I have to get to it, be like, well, I heard you said this, you want to talk about it. I think that's the only way, especially when you care about the other person, So I think, that's the one downfall of today's society, that we're so comfortable with the texting, with the online, with the not talking, with the not discussing things, that sometimes it feels uncomfortable. And again, going back to my kids, that's the one thing that I try to enforce. Communication is key. I'm not going to know how you're feeling if you don't tell me how you feel. If I offended you, you have to tell me what I did wrong so that I don't do it again. I'm big on that. If I did something wrong, I want to know what I did wrong so that I don't repeat it. And I think that goes with every aspect in life, whether it is personal life, whether it is relationships, and I do, like I take it very personal when things go wrong and I don't know what goes wrong, and then I lose people in my life, for example. So I think, again, communication, education is key, but also giving ourselves grace and asking for it, because again, when I'm surrounded by my community, I will say, ahead of time, I am sorry, I'm trying. And if you got to correct me, I don't get offended. Please correct me so that I don't keep making the same mistake.
You know what, hearing you talk, Maddie, I love how you are openly saying, hey, I'm still learning, please correct me, it won't offend me. Because I think I've seen it happen where people become too afraid to speak up because they may have done it in the past and someone lashed out on them, like they just had a bad experience. But I think it takes people like you to be open to be open to these conversations and say hola.
Hola.
Mi amor.
I got all the way here, but going super fast.
Okay, mi amor, let mommy talk. Okay. So, but I think it's in being emotionally mature to share those things. And I think that right now, especially with social media, everything's so polarized where people just feel safe hiding behind a keyboard and saying things, and they don't want to have that conversation. And I think it's become where, Maddie, you and I can't have a conversation because you have to agree with everything that I feel, think, say, whatever, and you were completely wrong. And we can never meet in the middle. And I think that that's where we got to learn to find our balance, where we can meet in the middle and learn to see other people's perspective. And it's okay if you don't agree with it, but you don't have to shut people down. And I think that that's the power in, again, learning to see diversity for the power that it can be, that people can have different experiences. There's even diversity in how the cities that we grew up with, how we grew up financially. I know, Viviana, you had mentioned that too. Like, that's another factor. So all of these things are so important for us to learn to embrace. And I think that a lot of that strength comes with that emotional maturity, because I know, as when I was younger, I would definitely be more reactive to some things. Than now I'm like, okay, well, where did they come from with that? Like, what could have led for them to say that thing or have that perspective? And so I try to ask better questions to understand their perspective, so that maybe it was something that I said that could be corrected, like you were saying, Maddie. And in the world that you're in, learning to be inclusive to everyone can be a challenge, but you're more aware of it. So I think it takes a tomar tú la iniciativa.
For you
You
to
take
take
the
the
initiative.
initiative.
Yeah, thank you. You take the initiative to how you want others to feel included, and that goes both ways. And I think that if you start with that yourself, more people are going to feel more comfortable, less threatened, less boxed in. And then that can be a positive ripple effect where you made someone feel safe, secure, and empowered. Then they're going to take that and maybe let their guard down and do that for someone else. I see things differently, because dicen que en español, más abejas se matan con miel que con hiel. I have no idea how you would say it in English, and the translation just doesn't make sense. But it says something like, you kill more bees with honey than with, I don't know how you say hiel in English, but it's a very bitter something.
Vinegar.
Vinegar?
Vile. I think it's vile.
Vile? I don't know.
I don't like vinegar.
But yeah,
I don't like
that's
vinegar.
like the equivalent of killing them with kindness.
There you go. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um, let's say hello to some of the people that have commented. By Lili Matos dijo, hola chicas. Iván Urdueña, saludos desde Colombia. Nikauri, alguien dice Mimi. So Nikauri's daughter, her name is Amaya. I'm her godmother. So she used to call me Tia, and then she stopped, and then she called me Mommy, and now she's saying Mimi. So we'll say hello to Amaya and to Julian as well, and whoever else is watching us that hasn't made any comments. But we love the comments. So we know that you're there, or a little wave or a little heart or something. Uh, but yeah, I find this topic very interesting, and I love to learn about it because it evolves all the time. As I was talking to Mark before the show started. We're talking about the robots. So, like, what are we going to call the robots? You know what I'm saying? And that they're going to be part of our culture, and all these different things. So, who knows what our children and grandchildren will have to deal with when it comes to inclusive language. But I just think it's learning the culture, whether you come in contact with somebody new. And I think it's, people can kind of feel your heart and your intentions when you ask certain questions. Oh, Valentina Rojas also sent us some type of message. Or hola, Valentina. Valentina is in Arkansas, if I'm not mistaken. We also got some love from Miluska. Oh, I haven't heard from her in a long time. Hola, Miluska. um but yeah, just keeping all those things in mind, just having an open mind, like you were saying, Nick, there about Maddie, just being open-minded that anything and everything is possible, and that things come up. And there's also just like there's my experience, there's other people's experience, and I don't know what those experiences are. So not passing judgment on people, and like listening to people. Um, there's a large percentage, and I don't know the number of like the underrepresented groups. And I'm sorry, Valentina, she's in Kansas. I don't know what I said. Arkansas, Kansas. My bad. But there's a lot of groups of underrepresented people. So whether it's your Asians, or your senior citizens, or people that are of mixed culture. So like even someone like you, like you're mixed within the Latino countries, but you're still a mixed person. Versus for myself, both of my parents are Colombian, and I was born in Colombia. So sometimes people like those groups, and you might be able to represent multiple groups that are underserved. And I think that we can find representation in them. I went to a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and there was a lady from she was from somewhere in Africa. I forget exactly. Ethiopia. She was from Ethiopia, and she gets invited to, hey, can you want to join this board, or you want to join this other board, because there's not a lot of, her people are underrepresented, right? Her culture is. So she says, sometimes I sit at the table, but my voice is not really heard. So I think the represented population, that we ensure that we're in places where our voice is truly going to make a difference, right? So I don't want to go just to check off, or you have a Latin person on your board. Like, no, like I want to have a voice. Like the gentleman was saying, did you get a menu when you sat at the table? Were you able to order the food and eat the food, or they just truly just checked off the box that you were present? So I think all of that makes a difference. I wanted to ask you, Nicte, with the field of work that you do, have you ever met resistance? Like when people hire you, like do they know you're big on this culture piece, or have you ever had resistance from someone saying, "Oh, I don't think we want that"?
That's a great question. Uh, I think that as I've been more outspoken about it, people who may not be of my cultures appreciate what I do. And so there's been two angles where I see people feel connected to the color and how I use it to express and communicate. Really, essentially, color is a form of communication. So they're connected through that. And then they also then see the piece of culture. And I think culture is often so misunderstood and represented, I guess, in a way where there's our cultural heritage, but then the culture that is our shared culture, where it can be people from different backgrounds or different races coming together and having a shared culture. So it's about being able to see that for that specific use case, or for instance, in the terms of what I do with branding. So how that applies to the brand and the people that it's going to be in contact with. So I've had a few people tell me it's more about my use of color that they don't connect with, because they are more like, they like to use neutral colors, black and white, grays, which is totally okay. And if it makes sense for their brand, that makes complete sense. And that's where the alignment doesn't really fall in, because of how I use more vibrant colors to be expressive and connect people. But I've learned to be very much okay with that, because I know not everybody's my client. And honestly, that I think that would be more boring if you can, like, everybody's your client, then you're kind of like, the excitement isn't there, the challenge isn't there. So being able to do that. And I've also had clients where they say they're apprehensive about embracing color and they're not sure if it would align. So that's where we're like, okay, well, what is causing you to feel apprehensive? Sometimes it's a personal experience. Sometimes it's not knowing what colors to use. And that's when we're like, okay, well, who is your audience? What do you want them to feel? And it's kind of going back to those emotions and making people feel connected and represented. And I think too, sometimes what I do is not about separating people, but it's about finding ways to connect people. And even if I do a lot of work with like Latinos, because I'm multicultural Latina, like you were saying, there's so many angles of my experience that I can put, because I know I'm not the only one, but I never work with clients who are going to be like, well, I want this to only be about Latinos. And if you're not a Latino, you're not welcome. That is not how I align myself with businesses, because I feel that we can do so much more by creating these spaces and environments where people can feel welcome, even if they may not fall like under the category. They might not be Latinos, they might not speak Spanish, but they gravitate towards our community. I don't ever want to create something or be a part of something that is going to exclude others. And so that's really kind of like my whole philosophy and how I work. And there's always a way to bridge things if you ask the right questions, if you kind of get to know the client and the perspective a little bit more. And if it doesn't align, then that's okay. Learning to be accepting that, and not kind of like what we were saying earlier, that conversation, meeting people in the middle, understanding where they come from and knowing where you come from. And that's okay if you're not on the same path. You can still be on each other's parallel different paths and honor that person for their, perspective.
I agree. It's about respect, for one another. I think, respecting and acknowledging our differences. When I was hearing you talk, it also reminded me another point that the lady from the TED Talk made, and it's like little simple things, little simple details. Like, for example, she said, it's me. She's Black. The lady that did the TED Talk is Black. And then she's like, it's me being able to walk at my workplace with my braids one day, and then the next day walk in with my natural hair and still feel like me, and not feel like everybody's staring because I look completely different, And, when I heard that, it made me laugh, because I do have one client that he walks in every day and he passes by my office just to see what my hair looks like. And I thought that was hilarious. And he's like, I have to see, because your hair looks different every day, so I have to see what you did with your hair today, but just the fact that he sees that, but he knows it's still me, it's little things like that, because in the past I probably wouldn't have felt as comfortable, growing up when I was younger. I wouldn't have felt as comfortable changing drastically, because it's like, okay, they accept me like this, why would I change the way that they accept me, instead of looking at myself and be like, all of this is me, not just this version of me. These are different versions of the same person. Why should I hide them when it's me? I had one person ask me, it's like, oh, what did you do to your hair? And I was like, what happened to your hair? Was the question. What happened to your hair? And I said, water. Water happened.
Oh my God.
It's like, sometimes you try to, have a smart explanation or something, but it's like, no, this is my natural hair, and this is what happens when I wet my hair. When I straighten my hair, I have to spend a couple of hours trying to get it to stay that way, and then, but if I put water, this is what happens, so but it's, again, it's little things like that, feeling comfortable enough, to kind of be able to be yourself and unapologetically be yourself. So
I love that.
Yeah, Mark wanted to make sure we didn't forget about the people that are, let's say, have some type of disability, some that are visible, some that are not. I know when my mom was publishing the book for the Spanish classes, she was adamant about putting images of and this came out of her naturally, just to represent, the different age groups, the different skin tones. And I think she even put somebody in a wheelchair, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, she
And
did.
she was adamant about doing that. And I just think they're little things, but they're big things, and they represent a lot. So a lot of the times, children today and adults have attention deficit is very popular, and some people joke about it, but it's something very serious as well. Once you go through it, or somebody that goes through it. So I think sometimes we kind of joke about it, but it could be a very serious matter to some people. So just
yeah.
being mindful of that.
Yeah, I have one of my very good friends. She's one of my teammates in the team this year. We've been friends for over 10 years, and she talks a lot. She has several poems about it. She has an issue with her bladder, and she is constantly in chronic pain, and sometimes, going around your life, like, because life has to go on, life happens and it goes on, and she's a mom of two, and her children do sports and dancing and whatever, and she's always there supporting, and and she's a performing artist, and she has her days when she's like, I'm like dying today, I'm in pain, and she has like a whole disability sticker on her car, to be able to park and stuff like that, and she's like, it's crazy because people look at me and they think I'm faking this, like I'm, but they don't understand the pain that I live in, and I have to constantly explain that I'm in pain, so it's things like that sometimes that we don't fully understand. And then having people like, how do you I mean, like, I can only imagine having to constantly explain. You get to the point where it is what it is. You think what you want to think. This is my life. So yeah, we have to kind of be mindful of those things as well.
And that's a really good point. I think it wears on you after a while. And I think one of the biggest biases that a lot of us have across the board, cultures, race, when it comes to inclusion, and it's so true, we don't have enough conversations about disability and what that is, because I heard it, unfortunately, when I was going through a lot of things with my son and he had special needs. And a lot of people would say, well, he doesn't look like he has a disability. And that used to really bother me, because it almost feels like you have to fit this checkbox or a visual checkbox for someone to fall under this category that you think would be appropriate. And I think that sometimes it's really stemming down to lack of knowledge, but also lack of awareness that people are sharing their stories and sharing it in a way that is not lashing out and being angry. And yes, you can be angry if you've had bad experiences like your friend Maddie. Um, but I think that you can bring more awareness by sharing that story, things that you've encountered, and doing little things like my tia Viviana's mom did with her book that no one told her to do, but she wanted people to feel, children to feel represented in these illustrations. And it's those little things making that step that makes such a big difference. And it's putting ourselves on check. If you feel the need to say, oh, I didn't know you were disabled, you don't look disabled, like really put yourself on check to like never say something like that, because you cannot use visuals as a way to classify a person for whoever, whatever they are. And I think that because we're so visually inclined, that has been misconstrued, or se salió del riel, like it's just gotten a little bit too out of control. And it just needs to be more about learning about that person's life and understanding where they come from, instead of trying to put them in some sort of checkbox so that we can feel comfortable about understanding where they come from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very important. I think it's, what Maddie says all the time, just the educational piece, and then just if and to give yourself grace, because we are going to make a mistake. We are going to, tap into our past, our experience, and say something. But I think acknowledging, I think you would respect me if I acknowledge my mistake. And I think
Mhm.
it's just how we communicate to each other, right? For unique there for you to tell me, hey, Viviana, like this made me feel some type of way. Like I went to a class and they had a what they call an ouch card. So if somebody said something that was
Mhm.
uncomfortable, they would
Mhm.
pull out the ouch card, and then we would have a conversation about it.
Oh, I
Um,
love that.
so, but people have to be open to that, because some
Mhm.
people won't. The ouch card won't look. It'll look with aggressiveness, right? It'll come out with
Mhm.
aggression. So it just depends. But I think it's all about how we handle the different situations, and to give ourselves grace and give other people grace as well.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that makes a big difference. That's why I tell people all the time, like, did you not know that we contribute $3.5 trillion to the economy? So I'm like, don't get it twisted just because I'm driving this type of car, or, I'm not bling bling all the time. Yeah. So, yeah. So, and that's another one, right? So, a lot of, not today, I think people are kind of learning more about the Latino culture,
Mhm.
but they're starting to know that Latinos not only do farming and construction, like we do more than
Mhm.
that. Um,
Yeah.
and that's what we've been adamant about, mentioning the $3.4 trillion that we contribute to the economy, because it's so much more than that.
Mhm.
um, and soon we're going to have a topic here too about colorism, because there's a lot of bias within us as well. So it's not just people that are not Latino, but sometimes, as you have mentioned a little bit of that, Icte, oh,
Mhm.
because you're Dominican, that this is what Dominicans do, this is what Dominicans look like, sound like, cook like, we do all those
Mhm.
things amongst each other.
Mhm.
um, that's another topic that we're going to be talking about. But yeah, this has been very interesting. I love this topic. Just being, instead of being unconscious, like get conscious and learn and
Mhm.
educate yourself. And of course, we're not expecting for everybody to, be in perfection and know everything about that, what's happening, but at least just kind of be aware and be open to listen. I don't know if you guys remember when we had Michelle on the show, she talked about the circles, about the there's
Yes.
different type of circles, the healing circles, conflict resolution circles. And she said the biggest thing is that when you're in circle and you're having conversation and you have a talking piece, and the only person that's talking is the person with the talking piece, you spend more time listening than talking.
Mhm.
So I think it's that. So even if you're not sitting in circle, even if you don't have a talking piece, spend more time listening than talking, and we'll be
Mhm.
in a better place. Um, so Maddie, we're ready for your, how do you,
Oh
what do
God,
you
don't put that
feel
pressure on me.
when you
No,
start
I wanted to say before I go into poem, it's like I think the biggest difference between how we grew up and this generation is that we grew up being told this is how things are, and then now this generation understands that things have been like this, but they can be different, and I think that is huge. So things are like this and we grew up like in a rigid, and it's like that's why we have so many issues, coming to a different place, accepting
on?
ourselves, talking about our race, talking about colorism and things like that, because those are things that were not addressed in our culture because things just simply are the way they are. And here we are, many months later, understanding that things can be different. Okay, so this is a new piece. I haven't read this out loud, but we're trying to kind of come up with no, 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 no. So we're trying to come up with like topics again, to write, to do group pieces, and we're here thinking about a support group for Disney princesses. So of course I wrote from Mirabel Madrigal's point of view, from Encanto. I do have an Encanto poem, so this is just from her point of view. But again, I think talking about fitting in and belonging, that's kind of what she was going through, in her whole scenario. So the poem is called Mirabel Madrigal. And again, her well, I explained it in the poem, but her name has, like, her first name and her last name have meaning. So anyway, so my first name means wondrous beauty. Yet my reflection makes a traitor of this meaning. I often wonder, how can two opposite explanations define the same truth? My last name, defined as an a cappella song created for several voices. My family is a colorful song I have been trying to master since birth, to find the notes that could explain my role. Most of the time I'm lost. No super hearing, no super strength, can't create gardens, talk to animals, and as much as I wish, I can't change myself. I only know how to be me. So many times I wish that I was good enough, but in a song without instruments, it is hard to stay on pitch. And no, we don't talk about our trauma. Doors closing in my face, disappointment is now part of my middle name, and my loved ones can seem to understand that I just want to belong. How can we aspire to a better future without acknowledging the mistakes of the past? Reminding one another that powers or not, we are family and we have each other's back. Let the present be my gift. The fact that I get to exist, that even when the casita crumbles around me, no one can dim my light, our light. We are more than external beauty and external strength. We are also the internal force that brings out the best in one another. A reminder, we all have a little bit of encanto inside of ourselves.
Maddie,
Thank you.
oof. I I think this is one of my favorite ones that you've written. Like I don't know, I just the message was so powerful, and it's um inspires hope and love for yourself. So I love it, Maddie. Gracias.
Yes, thank you so much. Always, I'm telling you, you could never go wrong. Somebody else read one of your poems, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait till Maddie reads it. But yeah, I love it. But I hope you ladies have an amazing week. I hope our audience, I hope you guys have an amazing week. We will be here next Sunday at 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Otra vez, again. So estamos aquí todos los domingos a las 4 de la tarde y espero que tengan una excelente semana. Valentina dice, I love you, Maddie.
Mhm.
¿Tú conoces a Valentina?
You're still
You're,
on mute.
Sorry, the name doesn't ring a bell, but I'm pretty sure that if I see the picture, probably do.
Because I'm gonna have to call her, be like, "You're spreading love. You don't even know these people." I'm just joking. All right. So I hope you guys have an amazing week. Thank you, Mark, for everything, and we'll see you guys next Sunday at 4:00 Eastern Standard Time.
Ciao.
Bye, guys.
Whether you're a seasoned designer, dabbler, or just starting out, this course is for you.
Are just so impressed with them. Like I said, we've been with them for years. I will recommend and refer anyone to them. We stand by A+ Academics. They're the best.
A+ tutorial really did help me with all my grades. They all went up when I came to this place. And I would say I recommend this school to everyone.
So it's a really good environment to be in, especially for me because it makes me look up to my parents.
If you have students that need academic help, A+ Academics is the place to be. A+ Academics, what a great place to go for academics.
It's just a really great place to learn.